Hello, and thank you for joining us on 15 Minutes in Heaven. This is Pastor Joseph Carty, the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist churches of Gordon, Valentine, Springview, and Hyannis. This is our first 15-minute program here on the air, and I was wondering if maybe some of you would want to know why we picked the name 15 Minutes in Heaven. I actually got the idea from those books about people who died and came back to life again. They claim that they had this, what they call an out-of-body experience in heaven or in hell, and then entered back into their body. Although there is a lot of chaos in this world, and we don't have to be controlled by it. In John chapter 17, Jesus prayed to his disciples in these words, "I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but thou keepest them from the evil." Jesus knows that we are going to have troubles in this life. We are part of this sinful world. But Jesus prays that we will not be affected by the evil of the world. This is not a physical out-of-body experience, but rather a spiritual one. 15 Minutes in Heaven is designed to cheer your heart and bring you closer to God. Today, I thought it would be appropriate to share how God rescued me from the evil of this world. One of the best ways to share Christ is to tell what he did for me. I was raised in a strong Christian family that was somewhat conservative. We went to church each week. I even went to a little Christian school in our rural Californian farm town. As I matured into adulthood, I slowly began to compromise the truth from my youth. I let go of many of the precious truths and standards I was taught as a child because they continually got in the way of me enjoying this world. I began to notice a biblical truth that John spoke about in John chapter 15, verse 19. Jesus said to them, "If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, I have chosen you out of the world. Therefore, the world hateth you." This world runs at a perfect cross purpose to the world of heaven. Many of the goals and pressures of this world are contrary to the walk of the Christian. I found myself at not one, but multiple forks in the road. I could either be comfortable and fit in with this world by compromising what I was taught as a child, or I could stick out of the crowd and be weird. Satan knows just how to get each of us. Some, he finds a special spot of weakness, and this weakness eventually becomes our ultimate downfall. Others, Satan actually picks our strengths. He knows what our special gifts are, and he uses this strength and the love of it to drag us into the world. The second was probably truer with me. Like any young man, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer for as long as I could remember. I had never thought twice about what would be my major in college. I quickly signed up for a degree in mechanical engineering. It turned out to be good for me, and this turned out to be the snare that Satan used for me. I found myself taking 18 units of junior and senior level mechanical engineering classes while working full-time as an intern at the largest mechanical-only engineering company west of the Mississippi. It turned out that they liked me. I would stay late to get in all of my hours, and soon enough, they had given me the key and the passcode for the security system of the building because I was the last person leaving each day. I worked in a special branch of the company. They called it sustainability and technology. In other words, we helped out to make the buildings to be more efficient and more advanced. This was a fast-growing branch in the company, and few had been trained to work in this department. Therefore, I quickly rose to the top. After only 6 months of working there, I could tell they really liked me. Certain ones would come to me in private and tell me to keep up the good work. And because they had heard about me, I had also people come to me in private saying things like, "You know, in about 10 or 15 years, some of the 8 presidents of our company will be retiring. If you keep doing well, you might find yourself in one of those positions. About this time, I had ran into one of my old friends on my college campus. Sacramento State University has 25,000 students going to school there each day. And you can imagine that the parking lot in the campus is so large that we could have been going to school together and not have known it for months. We ran into each other in the parking lot and was catching up over how things had been in the last year since we'd seen each other. And then he asked me the most piercing question. I know the Lord had to have given this question to him. He said, "How are you doing spiritually?" Today, I would like to ask the same question of you. How are you doing spiritually? Perhaps you are like me, and this is not the time you expected or even wanted to hear that question. But I ask you nonetheless. This has been you can imagine that this had been a very close friend of mine. And so I answered him honestly. I'm doing terribly, spiritually. I am too, he quickly answered back. And I found this on my windshield wiper today. In his hand was a flyer for a free Bible study group on campus. We both decided that we would go and see how it worked out. I knew that I had a tremendously busy schedule, but I knew that I needed this more than anything else. I ended up falling in love with God again through the small group Bible studies. Here, I could really be myself. I did not have to try to be Mr. Engineer. I did not have to be the smart kid taking 18 units and working full-time. I did not have to be successful. In fact, this was the first time in my life that I had to honestly ask myself, what is success? This had been my life's obsession. This had been my overwhelming passion. This is what turned out to be good at first. Though I thought I was amazing at it, it was my downfall. What is success? The world would define it by money, fame, power, and strength. God's world defines it differently. Matthew chapter 16, verse 26 says, "For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Success in the biblical sense has nothing to do with this world. It is all about being in heaven. How do you stand before God today, friends? Are you successful? Are you seeking after the success of this world or the world to come? It was a clear decision that it had to be made. My goals and my passions were changing. I went from wanting to be the best engineer to wanting to share the happiness I had found in Jesus with everybody I met. Talking to it with my boss was the moment that I had dreaded. When I went to tell my multiple bosses at my engineering company that I was leaving, they were shocked. But when they heard that I was going to do it in order to attend a training school to help me better share my faith, they were very shocked. They almost couldn't take it seriously. Like me previously, they could not mesh this new decision with their life of servitude to worldly success. This all sounded so foreign, so confusing to them. First, they tried to bribe me to stay. I did not expect this in the least. I knew that they had liked me, but I did not know that they depended on me that much. They offered me a raise and a promotion if I would stay and do what I had loved. This was very odd for such a large company to offer this to such a new person. I was still an intern, and they promised me a true position once I had graduated in a year, but now they were offering me a raise and a promotion immediately. This was a true temptation for me. I know it was directly from Satan, in hindsight. But because I had prayed about it and had really put it before the Lord, I was confident that the Lord was leading me, and I thanked them very much for the offer, but told them I could not accept it. Now they proceeded to tell me that if I left the company, I could not come back after the training school had finished. You see, to this point, I had still been planning on going to this training school, understanding how to share my faith, and then coming back to school and to work and sharing my faith on the side of being an engineer. But as they told me that I cannot come back to work there after I leave, I had to really rethink things again. I got back on my knees and I began to pray. Lord, do you have different plans for me than I have for myself? I had to empty myself of all my dreams, hopes, goals, and visions of success. I told the Lord that I'm willing to go wherever he leads. Slowly, the Lord began to plant in my mind his goal for me. By the time I was done with the outreach training school, I was convinced the Lord was calling me to full-time ministry. What aspect of ministry, I did not yet know. Then I found out about an international mission trip company that would allow me to work on the front lines of mission work for God. I told them that I would go anywhere. I thought they were going to send me to China, or the Philippines, or maybe even Afghanistan. They told me that one of the hardest countries to work in that they were currently working in was a little country in Europe called Albania. Formerly communist, this country had been deprived of practicing its previously strong Muslim faith. This resulted in a lot of nominal Muslims that claimed their faith by name but did not practice it in any way. This faith they clung to tenaciously, though, because it was their social norm. To be anything else was almost heretical. I worked there with the Albanian people for a year. This gave me an even stronger taste for God's work. I had tasted and seen that he is good, and I decided that I would go back to the United States and work in full-time ministry. To this point, my family had given me a little space because they thought that I had just gotten burnt out, going to school and working so much, and needed a break. But when they found out that I was going back to ministry and not back to mechanical engineering forever, they really questioned me. How can you just leave what you've been working so hard for these past 4 years, they asked. I was confident of my calling, and I tried to explain to them that the Lord had different plans for me. Without complete support from my family, I put my whole heart into God's work. Starting at the bottom of the totem pole, I did anything the church needed of me. I found myself knocking on door after door in different towns, inviting everyone that would be willing to join me in Bible studies to develop a deeper relationship with their Lord. After a few years of this, the Lord had prepared me enough to do pastoral ministry. So here I found myself, the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist churches of Gordon, Valentine, Springview, and Hyannis. I have the privilege of ministering to you now. This has certainly been an awesome journey with the Lord, and it is not over yet. What mission has God given you? What is God's goal for your life? Have you been fulfilling it? Or have you been like Jonah and myself, running from your goals? Remember Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Thanks for joining me, Pastor Joseph Carty, the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist churches in Gordon, Valentine, Springview, and Hyannis. And tune in next week for 15 minutes in heaven.